What's up, everybody? It's Ronald. And the Academy Awards are done. People won, people lost, and people got snubbed. This episode won't discuss any of that. Today, we're going to talk through all the Best Picture nominees, and I've watched 9 of the 10. Now, normally I would have watched all of them, but one of them, All Quiet on the Western Front, unfortunately slipped off my radar and I completely forgot. But for every single other one, I have an opinion, and at the end of this episode, I'm going to rank all of them and tell you which ones I think you'd enjoy the most. Again, by now, you already know which one won the big award, but for those of you who just want to know which ones are worth watching, I'm going to try and give you some insight into which one or ones those are. Now, currently in the Leaving the Theater feed, we already have full episodes for the following: Everything Everywhere All at Once, Top Gun Maverick, Elvis, Avatar The Way of Water, and The Banshees of Inisherin. So if you want an in-depth opinion on any of those films, you can go back and check those out right now. As I said, I missed out on watching All Quiet on the Western Front in time to include it in today's episode, so I won't include that in the ranking. So for the 4 films we're covering today, you can check out the show notes and click the links for more information on each of them. But I'll introduce each one right here as we go. So let's kick things off with Tar. Tar, written and directed by Todd Field, starring Cate Blanchett, Nina Hoss, Nomi Merlant, Sophie Cower, Julian Glover, Alan Cordner, and Mark Strong. And again, for all of the films reviewed, for a complete cast listing, you can check out the link in our show notes. It was also nominated for Best Director, Best Actress for Cate Blanchett, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and Best Film Editing. Here's Tar. This movie, I think this movie is 100% performance driven. There is a plot there that exists, and as the movie goes on longer and longer, I think it becomes like fairly obvious that there was some thought put into the plot beyond just Cate Blanchett's performance, which I think is, in fact, a feat of some of the other reasons why it's nominated. Meaning, it's nominated for, I think I said it all: Best Director, Best Actress, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing. Well, 2 of them, I'm like, got it. Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing. I don't know what the other candidates are, but I see well-deserved for the nomination for both of these. Best Original Screenplay, I think it should definitely be in that conversation. I got to check to see what other nominees are, and at the end of this episode, I'll have them go head-to-head. Right now, Cate Blanchett is the clear frontrunner for Best Actress from this movie. I mean, this is a movie about, essentially... It's funny because it's a white woman in the lead role, and this is a role based on the behavior and the actions of this person who is basically abusing their power while in a very prestigious role. It's kind of incredible. Oh boy, I definitely got a ticket. I'm looking over here and I'm like, I see the parking enforcement out, and I was parking reckless and I did not pay. So I'm definitely gonna get a ticket. Or if I don't, it'll be literally a miracle. But that being said, it's a person that's abusing their power, and specifically, or usually, we see this from white dudes. And that this is a white woman performing this role is pretty incredible. A white queer woman at that is pretty incredible, but they use all of the same markers in order to indicate the same abuses of power. But it's still interesting because it's still working within the confines of patriarchy, meaning that the ways in which she's able to get away with what she's doing is the same ways in which, like, Harvey Weinstein gets away with what she's doing. You're just surprised that it's happening. You're surprised that it's happening from the person in front of you. How's it going? You're surprised that it's happening from the person that it's happened to in front of you. So I think it's good. It's too long. It's 2 hours and 30 minutes, and it definitely overstayed its welcome in a way that you feel towards the end. Like, at the end, this movie I just think they were uncertain about where this movie was supposed to end, and it just drags on and on and on. Now, that's not to say I wasn't into it, but if I had to watch this again, I'd be like, yo, come on, we're gonna skip the first 30 minutes and get right to it, because there's stuff that's happening early in the movie that I think went longer than it needed to if you're gonna keep the movie going for 30 minutes longer than it should. Like 2 hours and 30 minutes seems extreme. I think they probably could have wrapped this up in about two. And there was a lot of stuff in there that they didn't necessarily need. So I don't know. With all that being said, solid 4-star movie. Definitely an Oscar pick. When I started it, I thought it was incredibly boring, but as it went on, they won me over. So, yeah. All right, our next film is Triangle of Sadness. Triangle of Sadness is written and directed by Ruben Östlund, starring Harris Dickinson, Charles B. Dean, Dolly De Leon, Zlatko Buric, Iris Bourbon, Vicky Berlin, Henrik Dorsen, and Woody Harrelson. It was also nominated for Best Director and Best Original Screenplay. Here's Triangle of Sadness. Back at it again, Triangle of Sadness. For this one to be nominated for what it's nominated for, in addition to Best Picture, I don't know if this is one of the ones that should have made it. I mean, granted, I think it was kind of a weak field. In this one, I feel like there's a lot going on. It's billed as a Black comedy, and in watching it, there is a lot of stuff that is like very darkly funny that I actually enjoyed and laughed out loud at. That being said, as it goes on, the comedy kind of hits, it's not a crescendo. It goes up and up for a while where I'm laughing. Then all of a sudden I'm like, am I supposed to be laughing? Like, what am I getting here? And you could tell that this movie is meant to be very allegorical in a lot of ways. But when we get to the very end, man, I think they thought they was doing something. When they got to the end, they're like, yeah, and then we gonna do this. And they did something that I did not like, and I think the rest of the audience didn't like it either, because we were with it. Have you ever, in a movie, been with it, ready to go, and then they just do something, and you're like, nah, we ain't with it no more. And it's like I felt the entire crowd turn against this movie because everyone was like, what? I heard audible people in the audience. When the credits started rolling on this movie, people said, what? So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think it's going to win Best Original Screenplay. I think it's up against Tar. I think Tar was written better than this one, but I also think there's another, if I'm not mistaken, Women Talking, no, that's adapted screenplay. So yeah, I don't see this one, I don't think this one's gonna make it. You know what I mean? I know it's not gonna win Best Picture, but it's up for Best Director and Best Original Screenplay. I don't see it winning out in those categories. It is good that it got a nod because I think it is generally a pretty good movie. And I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably watch it again. I'd probably give this movie 3.99. Actually, no, I think I'd give it 3.5 of 5 stars. It doesn't need 3.99 because I think at one point it was a 4-star movie and it's started to slip a little bit. And that ending, they just didn't stick the landing on this one. So 3.5. But I would watch it again, and I am going to talk more trash about it to other people and anybody else that'll listen. But anyway, let's get on to the next one. Our next film is Women Talking, written and directed by Sarah Polley, starring Rooney Mara, Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley, Judith Ivey, Ben Whishaw, and Frances McDormand. It was also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. And for this one, I was joined by a special guest, Brigid McDonnell. Here's Women Talking. Brigid McDonnell, what did you think of this movie?
I don't even know where to begin. It was traumatic. I cried start to finish.
That's true.
Yeah. I think it was showing a lot about the complexity of survivors of sexual assault and the kinds of things that go through your head and how um, I, I can't even imagine because of all the, I mean, we're talking like every woman was a victim in this movie.
Yeah.
Every single female.
Yeah.
And that was really, really hard to stomach. I don't even know where to start.
I think one thing that I noted is that if we think about the emotional portions of this movie, like all of them are very strong and very compelling. And I think what this movie is doing, it is setting up, and it starts off by saying that this is a work of female imagination. And what Sarah Polley sets up here is kind of a what if in a scenario in which men who are violent, men who are, in a lot of cases, the source of a lot of the strain and the problems and the violence and the power struggles that we have in the world, they shrink it all the way down to this colony and say, what if women just had a discussion about what we should do next? And I think the logic of this movie kind of made that reality so clear that it felt palpable. And by making it about sexual assault and rape, which ends up not really being like, they're only putting the kind of the cost of that in your face rather than the actual action of that. Because I feel like if a dude would have made this movie, it would have been about the action of it rather than the cost of it. What did you think about the way in which they showed it by actually not actually showing it? Good, how are you?
Good. I thought that you're absolutely right. The fact that we never saw the acts itself, but it was really focused on the women, and it was focused on like the physical and emotional burdens that they were left with after the act itself. Like just the immediate physical, like literally the trauma to their bodies, and then the emotional and like the physical healing process post that. And then also the emotional trauma that they were carrying. Yeah, I think it was a female focused movie. It was focusing on the women, and it was not really focusing on the men really at all.
What did you think about that choice? Because they barely show a man. They show one man in this movie, but they show one man and they show a trans man. But other than that, they show no other cisgender men in this movie. What did you think of that choice?
I loved it. No, I think it eliminated the distraction of the men. I mean, there were some elements where the women were grappling with the fact that these men are their brothers or their husbands or their uncles or whatever.
Sons.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. So they were grappling with that in the movie. It wasn't like they were just like, these are the other that we don't even know them kind of people. Like that they're members of their community. But the fact that they removed them completely, I think just really allowed us to focus on the women and their feelings.
Yes.
Which I loved.
And I think there's commentary there, because there's an idea of the way we think about assault and survival now. It really does become a question of whether or not we think the guy did it. And this question does not, this movie does not even look at that question. It says, no, they did it. We're just going to deal with the consequences of afterwards. Because I feel like if you're struggling with if they did it or not, or all of that, it kind of changes kind of the stakes of the movie. And I feel like even though this is a small movie, they kind of like ratchet those stakes all the way up because it feels a lot more universal. Now, one thing that I think that this movie reminded me of is another popular Oscar-winning film, if I'm not mistaken, called 12 Angry Men. So if you want to hear that review in its entirety, it's available on Patreon exclusively. Now, our last movie is The Fabelmans. The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner. Starring Michelle Williams, Paul Dano, Seth Rogen, Gabriel LaBelle, and Judd Hirsch. It's also been nominated for Best Director, Best Actress in Michelle Williams, Best Supporting Actor, Judd Hirsch, Best Original Screenplay, Best Original Score, and Best Production Design. Now, I didn't bring my recorder when I watched this, so I didn't get to capture the review live, but I didn't like it. I thought it was self-indulgent, boring, and too long. I thought it had a few good parts and was definitely an emotional movie, but overall, I didn't think it was a cohesive experience, and I just didn't enjoy it. However, everyone else likes it, so you might want to watch this one for yourself. All right, so without further ado, I'm now going to rank all of the Best Picture nominees and let you know which ones I highly recommend seeing. Again, this is all without All Quiet on the Western Front. So, we'll start with number 9. Avatar: The Way of Water. Didn't like it. Didn't even do the review on the show. That was Nick and Chioke. You can check that out in the feed. Number 8. Elvis. Didn't like it. Did not like it. Didn't like it. You can listen to that review, find out more details why. Number 7. The Fabelmans. Didn't like it. You might be getting a theme here. Did not like that one. Now, this next grouping is, I think they're worth watching, but they weren't my favorites. Number 6, The Banshees of Inisherin. I was confused, but it was beautifully shot, and I enjoyed watching the movie. I didn't get it, but I enjoyed it. Number 5, Triangle of Sadness. Another one that I didn't really get, especially I thought the ending was a little too abrupt, but worth watching. Not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, these next 4, the top 4, these are my favorites. Number 4, Top Gun Maverick. Really like this movie. As producer Jessica Reedy says, it understood the assignment. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's fun. It's high energy. I'm on the edge of my seat. I had a good time watching it. This is a good movie. That's number 4. Number 3, Tar. Wow, what a great movie. What a great feat of acting from Cate Blanchett. Could not take my eyes off the screen. I saw this one 2 times, and both times really enjoyed it. Worth watching. I think the acting drove this one a lot, but overall, really liked it. Really liked it. Number 2, Women Talking. Really enjoyed this movie. It's a very intense movie, very serious subject matter, but just really enjoyed the acting, really enjoyed the dialogue. It's well written. It starts off with a reader that says, a work of female imagination, and it imagines a world that is not very far from our own, with decisions that probably women think about every day. Very well depicted. Really enjoyed this one. Which brings me to my number 1, and you probably already know, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Fantastic movie, lots of fun, very weird, very deep storytelling, very well and richly told. Really enjoyed Michelle Yeoh's acting. Just really enjoyed this 100% from beginning to end. I think it's everything that I really want in a movie. I want to think, I want to feel emotions, I want to keep thinking about it when I leave, and I want action. I want a storyline. I want, a beginning, middle, and an end. And this did all of that for me. So that's my number 1. I don't know what won the big award, and I actually feel good not knowing at this moment. The awards are already given out, so I don't feel any pressure here one way or another, but now you know. And with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Thomas Tyra of Bias Studios mixes the show. Thank you, Tom. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about any of these movies, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. You can find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows by following us on Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron Studios and on Twitter at Oh It's Big Ron Stew. That's STEW. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening. All right, so, okay, well, that was a weird interaction. So, anyway,